All right, everybody. It seems that we are live. So I will go ahead and do the proverbial mic check and make sure that everybody can hear me and see me before we get started. And usually there's a little bit of lag. So just give me a minute or so here in the beginning to make sure that we are good to go. Clearly, there's a lot going on. It's 2022. And I felt like we needed to kind of chat and kind of get back into the swing of things now that the new year is here. And we finally all got past the holiday season. So, I'm seeing 5x5, good to go. All the things I like to see in the chat. How's everybody doing? Great to see you here. Welcome to Marauder Monday, the first one of 2022. 2021 was a great year for getting started with live streaming, and it was something I decided to do in the summer of 2021 to kind of connect closer to the community and also just have a weekly discussion about things that were currently happening. When you have a video release schedule that you try to build content around and you try to work it into your daily life, sometimes you can fall behind on what's happening in current events and everything else based on, having the allocated time in order to make videos about it. So having this weekly conversation has been extremely beneficial, not just for the community, but for me myself, because it lets me, talk to everybody here, get information from you all, and it also forces me to really see what's happening around the world and kind of do a weekly research in order to kind of have a good conversation on Monday. So I do appreciate you all being here, and I am extremely glad to, have this Monday routine that we all have together. And Ben T, welcome to the memberships. I appreciate it. Make sure you reach out directly to me to make sure that if for some reason your Discord link doesn't work, that you get one. And just so everybody knows, please jump over to the Discord if you want to have a good conversation, talk about things that are related to preparedness, and just try to build community and network. And like I've said before, we have different channels in the Discord for every single state, some different countries, places for you guys to meet other people and try to establish prepper groups. So hopefully you guys will join me over there. Mark Fallos, thank you so much. Happy New Year to you as well. Huge supporter of the channel, and I definitely appreciate everything you've done for me over the last year and a half of doing these live streams, right? Or I guess less than a year, but you know what I mean. It feels like a long time. All right, so Exile Reviews is here. Let's see here. We've got Kessler Maynard. I've got Kim's Rural Life. Welcome to My Life, Dr. D, Bug Out Adventures. Let's see, Water Bottles here. So a lot of great people are here, and I am glad to be here with you all. Now, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world going on right now. There's a lot of things that are kind of like hard to grasp, or at least hard to pay attention to, because it seems like you're constantly beating the same drum. It also seems like a lot of the news is becoming stale or old because, yeah, we know the shortages, we know the supply chain, yeah, we know the conflicts and everything else. But then what you start to do is you let those stories get away from you. You let the reporting get away from you. You let the intel start to get away from you because it seems like old news, so you perceive it as such. But then what happens is that you get behind what's really going on, and it actually jumps out and surprises you in a bad way when the actual SHTF scenario occurs, right? So we want to make sure we stay on top of it. And there is a lot of different things that we need to talk about tonight. So let's see here. And Dick Whiskey is a drummer, and they beat drums, and I can appreciate that. And I'm a bass player, so we're the rhythm section. And honestly, we both know that's the most important part of any band. So I'm just gonna say it, and it's fine if you hate me for it. All right, Annie Oakley, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. And Annie Oakley was, I'm sure a crack shot. So you can be on my team. That works for me. Now, I do want to go ahead and start this talk about something that's happening right now that should definitely keep all of us a little bit more I guess motivated. Okay, so what I want to do this year, 2022, like I have a lot of projects I'm working on. I have a lot of goals and expectations for myself when it comes to moving forward in preparedness, and I'll be sharing a lot of that with you all, of course, because it's what I do now, I guess, But one of the biggest priorities is going to be food. I really think so. And it's not just about, oh, there won't be food or any of those things. It's more about, how expensive it's becoming, how scarce it's becoming, and how much time it really buys you during any kind of a crisis scenario versus almost any other prep you can invest in, right? So food will buy you so much more time than anything else besides water. And there's more of a chance for you to use that survival food that you invest in than almost any other of your equipment or gear that you put money towards, right? So when it comes to your self-defense stuff, when it comes to your camping and survival gear, when it comes to all your additional fuel and power and all that stuff, at the end of the day, more than likely you're going to use food above everything else. Now, it's not as exciting, of course, and it also does have limitations based on space and based on storage life and everything like that. But it should be a priority this year. We really need to make sure we're investing in food. So one of the things I'm going to try to do is that every time I'm buying other preps or investing in some other category of preparedness, I'm also basically matching myself in the food category for the same exact amount, because I find it to be that important for us to keep doing that, because it's only going to get more expensive and inflation is just only going up. Now, I want to mention that if you've been paying attention to like the shortage articles and the food shortage reporting going on over the last year, a lot of it is in reference to specific items, right? For a long time, we're like chicken wings are gone, cream cheese has disappeared. There's a lot of different things that were like out, but it was just to these like niche items, and it was like something that, they could refill the space in with other things. So it wasn't as noticeable if you weren't specifically looking for those things. But now we've gotten to a different conversation when it comes to that. So I want to go ahead and share this with you all. And I am seeing some of the things here in the chat. So I do want to make sure that we touch base on those too, but I do want to get the conversation started. So this is just an article that I believe came out today, right? 6 grocery items that will surge in price this year, experts say. Whoever these experts are, I don't know, but this is what the article is saying. And it is basically saying, look, here's what's going to be in high demand and short supply this year. Steaks, okay, so like beef, I can understand that, good. All right, so we're talking about like a pretty big staple in the American diet. Chicken, just chicken. So now it's no longer chicken wings. It's no longer specific parts of the chicken. Now it is just chicken. So we're talking steaks, which we all know equates to beef, and then now chicken. And then we move down to the next part of this article, which is mayonnaise. Like, okay, well, sure. But is that due to, eggs? Wait, is that not a key ingredient in mayonnaise? Of course it is. So you're seeing a trend here. Cereal, right? Okay, well, whatever you want to say about it, but cereal is going to cost more. Well, cereal is made with some of the most basic ingredients when it comes to our food production within the world, right? And then vegetables. Okay, so now this article, like I said, it came out today, and it's talking about food in generalized categories versus specialized items. That is where we're going to, and I have a feeling that that's actually accurate, because it's no longer about, you can't buy the cream cheese. Now it is strictly about, well, here's these major food categories, and we just went through them, which is basically what? Protein, grains, and produce. Right, so like 3 of the most major food groups you could possibly have shortages or inflation on. And then they're all going to be more expensive, which also means they're going to be harder to get. So that should tell you what's really happening with food, more so than just the fact that, it's short because of this one item or that item. Now, if you go to your grocery store right now, I honestly feel like there's some struggles happening there. And I'm sure a lot of you share the same. And I saw this here just recently in the chat. Coffee First Then Speaks says, my supermarket looks like it hasn't been restocked in a few weeks. Dollar store looks like the apocalypse already happened, totally wiped out. And that is my experience as well. Now, I live in a small town in a small part of the country, right? But I will say, like, okay, well, have some of this going on. Maybe it's affecting me because a lot of the foods go into these major metropolitan areas and these major urban population centers before it reaches someone like myself. So, I do venture out, and I was recently in one of the larger towns in North Dakota, which is Minot, North Dakota, or Magic City, amazingly enough. And I was there at Walmart, right? Because I don't have a Costco or anything like that. So that's about as good as it gets for us out here. But what I will say is that it was empty. It was very empty in many ways. And it wasn't just in food. It wasn't just in the areas that, we rely on in the sense of, being able to feed ourselves, but it was empty in many, many departments. And there was even a section of the store in the corner that was just multiple empty aisles, as if they were just stacking them there because there wasn't anything else for them to do with them. And, of course, they're clearing out holiday stuff and they're rotating inventory. And we all know that too. But don't act like they didn't already have the Valentine's Day stuff out and ready to go. So this is starting to become a trend. And then in my local grocery store where I live, because I don't live in Minot, although I probably should live in Magic City because it would only make sense. But even my local grocery store, I mean, it's slim pickings. I don't get to decide on a million different options of the things that I would like to get. It's basically like, hey, there's that one thing that you've been looking for. Here's a couple options, and they're all expensive, even the store brand one, but it might be $1 less, right? And so that's what I'm seeing, at least in my area. And so then I started looking at articles like this one, and I thought, wow, like we're really talking about just basic food groups at this point. It's no longer specialized items. It's no longer anything specific. We are literally just talking food in general. Like I said, vegetables, cereal, eggs, mayonnaise, which is just eggs, right? And oil and everything else. But and then you have chicken and steak. Great. So that should tell you that this food thing is a big deal because we're not actually catching up, and we're actually getting to the point where they have to admit that these basic staples of food are harder to get and more expensive. And you got to have coffee. Doesn't matter what time it is, okay? So let's see here. Lisa G says, farmers markets in small towns are usually a good place to get, lots of local produce. And I agree with that too. Farmers markets only exist in certain parts of the year where I am, because right now it's 2 degrees outside. So generally, in the summer, they can do well for you, but you'd have to stock up, and then you'd have to can and preserve some things if you want them to last through the winter. But in some places, yeah, you could do farmer markets year round, like in, California and the Valley and stuff. I know that's definitely a thing. So there's a lot of possibilities there, but it's still indicative of where we are in the sense of like trying to get caught up, and in the sense of like how desperate food can become. So let's see, like Matthew Foley says cigarettes have gone up, $2 a box basically, or $2 a carton. I mean, that's definitely positive, or maybe not a carton, but even just a pack. But that's just, that's just another thing. And yeah, that might not be related to preparedness per se, but it can be if somebody relies on having cigarettes for whatever it is they need them for. So there you go. And that's just one more example. But yes, I mean, I agree. Things are just getting more expensive. So this is becoming an issue. Now, Dana M says coffee is also expected to skyrocket. I agree with that. I've seen lots of reporting on that last year, and I even talked about it in a video, how the Brazilian exporters are telling everybody, like, it's going to be a while before we get caught up, and it's going to get really expensive. And it's one of those things where a lot of people just said, well, I guess we'll just see what happens, right? But we all know that the coffee is going to be harder to come by. And in my experience, I need to have coffee because it makes me a better person. Okay, so Diabetic Prepper got a dehydrator for Christmas, using the crap out of it. It's amazing for storing your own food. I agree. Those are great ideas. Obviously, a freeze dryer is not something I think a lot of people would benefit from due to the cost. Yes, everyone would benefit from having one, but I think at this point in time, if I'm on a budget, spending $3,000 or $4,000 on a dehydrator would be a bad idea if I couldn't afford the food to dehydrate with it after the fact. So, in my opinion, if I'm on a budget, $3 or $4 grand towards actual food that can be stored away for almost just as long as what a dehydrator can accomplish is probably a better route to go. And then if you have the disposable income down the road to get a dehydrator, or a freeze dryer is what I'm talking about, sorry, then yes, that would be a good way to go. Now, food dehydrator is much less expensive and definitely a good route, a good concept in a similar vein. So I think that's a good idea. Now, let's talk about where I was going with this conversation in regards to what we can expect in places like the United States. When things start to fall apart, specifically regarding food shortages and economic collapse combined, because it is something that we can actually watch happening right now in front of our very eyes, which I think is unfortunate. So we all know that Afghanistan is collapsing as a nation, and its economy is falling apart, and it's getting to the point where no one is coming to work. They've had what I think it's something 70% of teachers haven't been paid since August, so they're expecting 9 million more children won't be going to school on top of the 4 million that already aren't. So we're talking, there's no schools running, there's no infrastructure happening in the sense of taking care of anyone in a civilized country. So they have regressed back into a different form of government, and things are falling apart, and there is no foreign aid taking care of it because the money and the aid that's going to be sent through is not going to work due to the fact that who are you giving it to? And how are you getting any kind of reassurances that it's being dispersed to where it's supposed to go? So this is just an example of a straight up economic collapse at this point. A nation that was left in tatters. The only reason it had any stability was suddenly ripped away. And now the new authoritative power is mismanaging everything for obvious reasons, I think, and they're falling apart. And it's just going to exactly what we're concerned about seeing in countries like our own in the United States, because basically if things happen the same way here, then we can expect a lot of the same. Now, why I wanted to bring this up wasn't because of exactly on their economic collapse. We have a good understanding as to why those things are happening. I'm very sure you guys agree with me on that. But what I wanted to talk about related to it is the fact that they are on the brink of mass starvation. Okay. And it's because of this economic collapse that this is happening. And basically, this article is an interview with a U.S. representative for Afghanistan. And they're just being grilled on the fact that nothing is being done about what's happening there. And let's see, they're saying there's about 8.7 million Afghanis nearing famine at this point in time. 23 million Afghans need food assistance. And most of the Afghan provinces are in a food insecure or crisis scenario. And that is literally happening right now, right in front of us, right in front of the entire world. And it just goes to show you how fragile things like food can be if the economy is ripped out from under a nation. And obviously the stability is a huge factor as well. So if things become unstable here and the economy collapses in many ways that we feel like it could, then you have to expect the idea that food will become a very big deal very fast. And that's why I'm really trying to prioritize and prep towards food. One of the things that I'm considering, and it's something, I might be working on here in the future, it just depends on resources and time and energy and everything else, of course. But I mean, I know that's a story of prepping in general, right? But one thing I'm considering is basically an in-earth greenhouse where you use the thermal insulation of the earth to keep your greenhouse warm enough to operate year-round in a very, very cold environment. And that's something I'm considering, and it's because of the fact that I think food is such a big deal right now, and I think that being able to grow my own is going to be a big deal. But I also need a way to maintain some level of growth throughout the winter months if possible. So that's something I'm considering, and I think these are the things everyone should be considering at this point in time. You should be thinking about how you're going to produce your own. What can you do with the space that you have? What are you limited by? And what can you do to overcome that challenge? These are a lot of questions we should be asking ourselves at this point in time, because it's becoming more and more of a necessity to not rely on these giant conglomerations for our food distribution. It's just not working any longer. Okay. So I wanted to bring all this up because, me going to the store recently was like a wake-up call again, as usual. But it was just a reminder to say, this is empty. This store is empty. There is nothing in the dairy section. The meat section looks terrible. Chicken is more expensive than beef, and I don't even understand that, but okay. And there's just a million other things happening that are showing me that things are worse than we're being told. And at the end of the day, why would we be told? Because we know what panic does. We saw what happened in 2020, and we know that if we're told about how tight things are getting, it's going to make it worse immediately, because the panic buying will start right away. So of course they're not going to tell us. So we have to kind of look with our own eyes and realize what's happening and understand and say, here we are. Okay. I do want to say, Northern Girl Hobbies, thanks for being here. I appreciate you being here and modding all the time. Very, very helpful, and I do appreciate what you do. And in case you guys don't know, Northern Girl Hobbies does have her own channel as well, so make sure you check that out if you're interested. Always good to broaden your horizons when it comes to preparedness. Let's see here. And some messages come through and they're held for review, and I can't stop this program from doing that. But what I can say is I do see Daniel Snyder's question, and all I want to say about it is that no, I don't think that that's what we should do. I don't think that we should, spend American dollars and lives fixing everybody's problems. That's not what I was trying to insinuate. All I was trying to say is that we have created an issue there by acting in the way that we did, in the sense of very bad mismanagement and neglect, due to the fact that we have terrible leadership right now when it comes to making those decisions. And now, as a country, they aren't capable of taking care of themselves, and this is all falling apart. And I'm just using it as an example as to what we should consider a possibility for ourselves, regardless of how well we feel about the state of our country or the state of the world. Everyone can look at other countries and say, well, that'll never happen here. And those are the same people that say that when they see their neighbor's house burned down, they say, well, that won't happen to me. Or when they see their other neighbor get broken into, that won't happen here. Those are the same conversations people have with themselves all the time. So I try my best to avoid that, right? I live in the middle of nowhere in a very, I guess you might want to say, relaxed area. And I still have zero doubts that somebody might try to rob me one day, or might try to break into my house, or whatever it is. And you know what? The likelihood of that is so low that most people probably won't even lock their door, but I do. And I still act in a way that makes me prepared for that scenario to unfold, just because I'm not going to ever fall into the trap of, well, it won't happen here. And that's just how I feel. So I just wanted to address that, just because I don't think everybody's comment is wrong or bad, but YouTube will take it away if it has any kind of language or anything like that in it. And then at least I can see it to try to help answer what happened there. Okay. Now, and Jungle Jim 57 agreed. That's why no aid is getting through to Afghanistan, because they know that the people who are in charge there have no accountability when it comes to making sure the money goes to the people of the country versus, just funding more, whatever it is they want to do. Right. Okay. So let's see here. I want to talk about the next thing really quick. And I do appreciate all of you being here. And just so you know, if you're new here, thanks for being here. Always network, try to meet more people in the chat. And if you want to join our Discord, please do, so that way you can get involved with other people within your state, your country, or whatever else it might be. And I always got to have more coffee. Everyone's talking about the Russian rocket. We'll just see what happens. I mean, a year ago, it was a Chinese rocket, same situation, basically. We'll just see what happens. I'm not going to speculate on it, other than if it happens, it happens, right? Now, one thing I do want to say is we all know what recently happened in Kentucky, right? And Kentucky had to declare a state of emergency because of so many other things occurring there. It's having more storms. And of course, after the big storms back in the middle of December, they haven't really gotten the same coverage, due to the fact that, the media works in cycles. So they jump on a big story that gets a lot of views and clicks and everything else, right? And then they move on. And then if something else happens that's not as, catastrophic or whatever you want to call it, or doesn't grab as much attention, then they kind of just move on past it and don't really put it out there for everybody to be concerned about. But Kentucky's still dealing with flash floods, power outages, property damage, tons and tons of different issues due to the fact that these storms went through there. And I mean, the people there have been terribly affected. So I do want to let you guys know that, we have to take care of each other. We have to take care of people in our backyard. And there are a lot of people out there doing things. I know Angry Prepper was out there working with people in Kentucky. And I know that Bear Independent was out there with his crew taking care of stuff. So I do want to let you guys know. So Wednesday night, okay, I will be hosting Bear Independent here on the channel for a live stream. And I want you guys to try to be there if you can. It'll be Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And him and I are going to discuss some things related to preparedness. We're going to talk about what he's been dealing with over in Kentucky. And then any super chats or super stickers or any of the stuff that you guys are going to or want to like donate or whatever that night will be going directly to his charity, which is Grindstone Ministries, so that they can keep helping people in Kentucky and keep helping people rebuild and get their lives back together, or at least have some semblance of quality of life once again, because there's still tons and tons of wreckage and damage there. So I'm trying to do what I can to help out by, creating a stream where we can have a good conversation, give you guys the opportunity to come in, maybe ask some questions and stuff like that. And then also, like I said, any super chats or anything like that come through for that stream, I'm going to send right over to Grindstone Ministries and hopefully help them out and get them some more of the supplies that they need. And I mean, we're talking everything from like food to clothes to everything, because people have lost everything in these storms. So, and we got to take care of each other. It's something that we got to try to do here in the preparedness community, because we can't expect everyone to be as prepared, and we can't expect people to take everything head on. There's sometimes things that you literally can't do anything about, and one of those things would be like a tornado. So these are just things we have to keep in mind, and hopefully we can help each other out a little bit. So moving on from there, there is a lot of things that happened in 2021 that we can review here now and kind of foresee what's going on in 2022. And I think that this is something that we can all agree on, that we can expect a lot of the same, right? Well, I think we are already seeing it. So there was a recent cyber attack that I think would be interesting to discuss because it seems like these cyber attacks, they're not only getting more sophisticated, they're targeting more hardened networks, right? So they're targeting places that are involved with the military. We're targeting places that are involved with national security. And then at the same time, these events are happening more than a year ago in many reports, and then only being told to us recently because they finally got it all figured out. So what we have to expect is that a lot of these different cyber attacks are likely occurring right now or have already happened, but we're not going to find out about them until later this year or next year or whenever the timeline works out that's best for the people who were affected. Because for a country like the UK to go ahead and say, yeah, our defense academy was hit by a cyber attack last year, right? Which, like I said, okay, well, thanks for telling us now. And it caused significant damage, okay? This is something that we should be considering as well. These cyber attacks are getting more prevalent. They're getting more sophisticated, and they already are happening right this second as we speak. We just haven't been told about them yet. And I feel like we're seeing an escalation of these attacks happening to national security agencies or any government-related agency. If you don't remember, there was the cyber attack on the Department of Energy recently, right? I think that was last year, maybe the year before. I can barely remember anymore. There's been so many. But what I'll say is that, the Department of Energy regulates our nuclear programs here in the United States. So there are some very I guess you would say fragile data networks that are being targeted by these attacks, and they're working. They're getting in and they're doing the things that they want to do. And many people have said things like, I believe the current White House even said something along the lines of these cyber attacks could eventually lead to a real conflict because of the amount of damage that they can perpetuate, and because of the fact that they are state versus state, and this would be considered an act of war in many ways if it was done on paper or face to face. So what is the difference when it's happening in the cyber realm? Now this is what's going on, and I think that we all have to be very aware of it. These cyber attacks are already happening or have already occurred. They just didn't say anything yet. And I think that's a big one for us to understand. This is the UK's Defense Academy, which is a part of their Ministry of Defense, and it happened a year ago, and now we know about it just now. So wanted to bring that to your attention. Don't be fooled about cyber attacks not showing up in the news as often. It's that they're already happening. It's just that they haven't told us, and that is something we should definitely keep in mind, because we all know that these cyber attacks could lead to a grid down scenario just as easy as anything else that they could do. And everyone thinks that people like these different entities, they only want money. They're only here for the ransoms, just pay them and they'll go away. At a certain point in time, this won't be some rogue entity or some hacker group who just wants money or criminals, right? At some point in time, you have to expect that this will be a state agency, or it will be a rogue agency of a state that decides that things aren't moving forward quickly enough in their agenda or whatever it might be. And this is a concern we should all have, because I think that's the reality we live in 2021. I do want to say Apocalypse Survivor, World War III has already started. COVID and SolarWind was step one. I mean, that might be true. And the first W, is that related to the internet? Because that would be clever. Although I feel like it might be a typo, because it makes you want to type three W's when you say three after. I know how that goes. And then Mark Fallos, thank you for the super chat. And 30,000 were evacuated. 1,000 homes burned to the ground in Colorado 2 days ago. Whole subdivision's gone, and it's only 2 miles from you. And I have seen all that, and that is another disaster area that we have to try to help out if possible. It's true. And that is also not getting the kind of coverage you would expect, because the day it happened, everybody talked about it, and now it's just like going lower and lower on the news chain, because that's how media works nowadays. But those people, entire lives are ruined, and they're going to have a lot of cleanup and a lot of rebuilding to do. And it takes people within the community, and it takes people that are willing to put in the work to actually get a lot of these people through this stuff, more so than anything else. And a lot of people, yes, will say, well, everyone had insurance, so they'll be okay. Well, insurance doesn't work very quickly, and neither does rebuilding a house or buying a new house or any of the things that might be on the table. So yeah, they might have insurance, but that doesn't mean they're going to be back in a home anytime soon. And I remember with some of the wildfires that I lived through over in California, there was many people who were displaced for a very long time, to the point where they're just living in a hotel. So, things do happen that way. All right. So let's see here. I'm just trying to jump in the chat here for a second, just kind of see if everybody's doing all right. And Mark Olson mentioned that, we specifically asked Russia not to attack critical infrastructure. So luckily, everyone plays by the rules. And since we asked, we don't have to worry about it. So I can appreciate that, because, yes, that is something that a lot of people think on here. And let's see. Okay. Just want to make sure there wasn't any other questions that I'm missing here. Mark Olson also said DDoS attacks on the DNS servers would cripple the internet. Most folks use their ISP's DNS service, so not many to hit. And that's true. And exactly. So the grid down thing, I mean, it could be related to specific parts of the grid, and the internet can definitely be one of them. And we've seen what's happened when certain domains and stuff like that are attacked with these DNS errors and everything else. And there's definitely ways that people can do it on a large scale. So it's definitely a concern. And we've seen it happening with certain large entities, right? With Amazon, with Facebook, with some of these bigger social media groups and marketing places. They've been attacked and had to shut down their entire site for a full day. Or maybe they weren't attacked. They just had something happen. But it just depends on how they want to report it, right? Okay, so let's talk about some other things going on. Now, I do want to mention there is the issues we still had from last year that a lot of us were talking about, and that we need to kind of just touch base on. The eviction crisis, right? So this Eviction Lab thing is like a tracker that basically talks about some of the places they track, and they track in 6 cities or 6 states and 31 cities. Okay, and so just in 6 states, they're talking about having almost 700,000 evictions since March of 2020. Okay, and that's 6 states, so that's 9%, 8% of the entire United States. So if you could multiply that number by about 10, you'd probably have a decent idea about how many evictions nationwide there might have been. And it's just something I found interesting, that at least this Eviction Lab thing is trying to track the idea of it. And like, for them, I'm sure there's some kind of a political agenda behind it, or whatever else you want to talk about. But for me, it's more about just understanding that many more people that are being put out, displaced, maybe forced into desperation, and are finding themselves in a very bad scenario. And that is a huge number in all reality. 700,000 people is no joke. And, like I said, it's only in 6 states. So this is something to keep in mind, okay? People are still losing their homes, and this whole eviction crisis is still going on. It's not being reported on. It's not being talked about, because it's just not, top news anymore. But these people are being displaced and will become desperate. And one of the things I noticed that was really concerning to me was that when I was at the grocery store, the food that was gone, almost guaranteed out of every aisle, was the budget-friendly food. I'm talking like the, let's see, there's, in my area, there's a brand called like That's Smart, I believe. And it is like the most generic food you can buy. Like, you can buy That's Smart flakes that are frosted, stuff like that. And then there's also like the above that is like the other brand, which is like the, oh man, what's it called? It's like the standard, like generic brand. It'd be like equivalent to Great Value at Walmart. But the That's Smart brand is like really cheap. Like, it's the cheapest one you can find. And just about every That's Smart space in every aisle was empty. And it's because, it's all affects people in low-income families the hardest, and especially those who don't have, government assistance and stuff like that, and don't have the ability to just buy like fresh food and everything else that they might want using some of that assistance. They usually stick to the things that are really inexpensive. And the reason I know this, and this is one of the things that kind of brought it to my attention is that the one thing that company puts out that, you know, like it's just a good little snack that like seems like my kids like or whatever. It's like those iced little oatmeal cookies, right? Yeah, I'm sure they're terrible for you. I get it. We're all gonna die. I know. But what I'm trying to say is that, you know, those were something that, you know, you pick up. It's less than $2 for a whole pack of them, and it's like, yeah, you know, just something easy that's just there, and then they're just gone. And I haven't been able to buy those for like 6 months. So it kind of got me thinking, well, I wonder what other products that company puts out that, you know, I can't find. It's like every single one. So we do need to keep in mind that the people affected by this eviction crisis are the same people who are affected by this food shortage. And like, it's just going to compound. And the people who are hurting the most are going to become the most desperate. It's going to be a large portion of the population. And you're going to see a lot more desperation occurring. That's why we're seeing crime and everything else go along with it. It's becoming an issue. Okay, so trying to get in here to the chat. Let's see. Andrea Tyler says, my husband's job still hasn't gotten the Chronos thing figured out yet. They haven't been paying anyone overtime. Everyone is just getting a base pay of 80 hours. And yeah, so when those giant firms get attacked and, you know, they manage all this different IT stuff, and especially when it comes to like payment systems and stuff like that, it affects people's lives directly. And people don't have time to wait around to get paid properly, but that's what they're dealing with. So like I said, these cyber attacks, it's not only just about like huge grid down scenarios, it's also about what it can do to you on just your daily life, okay? Survival Buzz says stores are getting bare here in Northeast Oklahoma, and that's I'm seeing that here too in North Dakota. So maybe if you're in the chat and you are in like a major metropolitan area, if you're in New York City, Chicago, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, any of those towns or anywhere nearby, let us know if you're seeing the same things, because I am curious as to whether or not they are prioritizing the population centers over the rural areas just to make sure that, you know, they can maintain the peace and everything in those areas before worrying about people like ourselves out here in the country. Just something I'm curious about. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go on to this next thing that I want to bring up. A big part of what happened in 2021 is something that I think we can all agree on. It's something that I talked about a little bit, but I think that all of you can agree on. Okay, so ammo shortage, right? Everybody was like, look, there's no ammo. We're having problems with this. This is causing us issues. It's unaffordable. We can't go hunting. We can't go training or any of this stuff. But one thing I want to bring up is that this article kind of proved a point that I was assuming as well. But the idea is that the supply is coming back, but it will never be cheap again. It will never be as cheap as it was before. And we're still finding it where, like, you know, 223 is running 70 cents. You know, I can find it for 50, but even then, like 50 cents is still not cheap compared to what it used to be. And then 9mm, 50 cents. Whereas, you know, you can find it for as low as 32 cents. And that 32-cent mark might be about as low as I'm finding it too. So what I'm saying is that, you know, I think that we need to make sure we're not just pushing things off just because they become more expensive now. We're hoping for the best, right? One thing that this article said that I totally agree with right now, and I just want all of you guys to kind of take note of, is for now, the best advice for shooters is buy it if you need it, even if it means paying a bit more. And that is exactly what we have to do. Because honestly, like, there's no guarantees that it's going to get cheaper, and there's no guarantees you're going to be able to buy it once the time comes when you need it, right? So keep training, do what you got to do, maybe train less or maybe be more efficient with your training. Mag dumps maybe are a thing of the past, but past that, just understand that just like a lot of other things in the world now, it's more expensive and it's not going to get cheaper, and it's only going to hinder your ability to be prepared if you keep waiting around for it to get cheaper. You're just going to have less for the same money, and that's just how it is, I think. Let's see here. Rock Prep 11 says, I'm in Rochester, New York, and some stores are stocked with name brand food, but budget not really, and prices have skyrocketed. It's a semi-metropolitan area. Yeah, so thanks for checking in. I think that's a big one, okay? Obi-Wan Kenobi says, yes, they are prioritizing. Just got back from New York. Things are bad, okay? Thanks for letting us know. I think that there's a couple others that I missed here, too. Dallas Fort Worth in my area took me 2 Targets, a Walmart, and a Super Kroger to complete my grocery list. Lots of bare shelves. Looks like stores haven't restocked in a week and a half. And it's interesting because I saw a similar comment to that many times that said things like, it looks like my store hasn't restocked for 2 weeks. So people are really actually seeing it to that point. Coffee First and Speak says Long Island, New York, highly populated, hit or miss with the stores. Some are okay, some are wiped. Also, a major worker shortage. Places are closing 2 days a week just because of staffing. That is another big deal. So I think that we are. I think we're in the same boat. And Rip Curl, I don't think it will come down if we stop buying it. I really don't, man, because I think they've already made their bread and they have their butter and they know that this is where we're going to stay at now. And they know if they just hold out, it's not going to stop people from buying it. It's just like they just know. And I mean, there is also the additional demand, and that's just how supply and demand works, right? So I do think that it can go down further than it is now, but I don't think it'll ever be as cheap because it's just, I think too many new people have woken up to the idea of why it's important. And that's just another thing I think is worth discussing. So let's see here. All right, here's some things I want to mention. Here's a distraction, at least in my opinion, okay? I want you guys to be aware of this. And this is just something that I saw and I was like, okay, this is a distraction. We need to keep our eyes out for whatever else is happening, right? So the cell phone radiation expert says FCC is in denial of health risks and demands full and independent investigation about cell phone radiation, okay? So here's something that I want everybody to understand. And this is just my opinion. So like I said, I'm not a medical professional. This is not expert advice or anything along those lines. But here's the thing, okay? Cell phones are radiated. You're zapping your brain every single time you use your phone. Every time it's in your pocket, you're zapping yourself. We're all zapped to crap. We're zapped. That's it. Okay. So yeah, if you're using a smartphone, you're zapping it. If you're not, okay, you're staying away from it. But the other million people around you that are using them are zapping you. We're all zapped, man. So I think this is a big. I think this is a big distraction. I'm not sure what it's distracting from. I'm sure many of you in the chat can chime in about that. But what I'm seeing is a lot of backpedaling and a lot of change of direction going on lately when it comes to a lot of things that are very high priority in a lot of people's minds. And suddenly this person comes out and is like, we really need to pay attention to this. Look, man, we've had smartphones since what, 2007? It's 2021, and I'm not a scientist or a medical expert or anything. And do you think for a second I don't realize that I'm giving myself cancer by having my phone in my pocket? Like, of course I do. So yes, we're all radiated and we're all getting cancer from these phones, and we're not going to give them up because you know what? I could give my phone up. The next person right next to me at every single place I ever go to visit in the rest of my life is going to have one in their pocket. And you know, we all know how the networks work. It's covering everything at this point. It's unavoidable. So yeah, we can admit that they cause problems. We can admit that we are probably going to suffer health consequences for it in the future. But I think we already knew that, right? I think it's basically like common knowledge. It should be just like a basic adherence of we're sacrificing our health for convenience. We already knew that. So I don't understand why everybody is thinking that this is like big news. And I feel like it is a distraction because I am aware of the fact that, yes, this is going to hurt me. And I think that you guys are probably aware of it too. So I think we all know, but I also think we know that it's pretty much unavoidable. It's not like I have a decision on where they put up towers or what they broadcast from them or anything like that. And it's not like me not having a phone is going to make my life better for the extra amount of time that I live for by not having it. This is the point in time we're in where you almost have to have one to operate, you know, through your day to day in order to get things done, especially when you do things like me and make videos for YouTube. So maybe many of you can avoid it, and that's good for you if that's what you decide to do. I'm just going to be zapped to crap, and that's just what I'm going to be. And in fact, I'm probably going to put on a t-shirt, and then that way everybody will know. Okay. So just bringing that up. Just want you guys to know. Yeah. And I think, you know, Bug Out Adventure says, you know, there's reasons they're going to taken out by the government before 5G will ever get them. And, you know, I can totally see what you're saying there, and I totally get it. And I feel the same way. I think there's other reasons I'll get, you know, zapped before I actually get zapped. Does that make any sense? I don't know. So, and Lakeside said so many things hurt us now. Exactly. The food is bad. The radiation from the cell phones is bad. I mean, everything's bad, right? So here we are. It's terrible. Yeah, Minuteman 69 said your microwave. Yeah, man, I'm zapped to crap by the microwave all the time. You know, you got me. So I think there are some things that we have to just kind of like admit, right? Okay, so I do want to bring up another point, and this is something that I think everybody can agree on, and I think that everybody should at least consider. Okay. Okay. There's been a lot of talk, and I want to preface this with that I'm not jumping into some kind of weird rabbit hole here. But hold on. I gotta drink my rabbit hole coffee. Okay, so this is where Marauder Mondays really takes off. Here's the uncertainty factor. Uncertainty, right? It's on the thumbnail, so we have to talk about it. All right. One thing that's been circulating quite a bit throughout the last year, and it's something that I think that we can all, have our speculations about, is the entire cargo ship scenario, right? And so there's been a lot of talk and a lot of speculation about like what's on the ships, right? And I know there's a lot of people who have said things like, "Oh, it's a military in waiting, it's an invasion force," all those things, and it's like, okay, seems very impractical. That's a lot of time to just sit inside a cargo container. It's probably disgusting, but okay, sure. Because I don't count anything out, I'm pretty open-minded. But what I will say is, there was other more, I guess you would say, reasonable concepts revolving around that I wanted to bring back around just to kind of have a little chat about it. So I want to say it was probably Marfoogle TV that talked about it. If you don't know about, Marfoogle, I would check them out. I think that once in a while, some great information comes out from over there. They have a huge community that's very supportive and has a lot of support for the preparedness community. And I actually like hanging out in the chats over there. So I think you guys should check them out. Even if you don't like the way it's presented, there's some other good people you might find in the chat. So, but one thing I'll say is that they brought out the idea that there was the the possibility of something being in a cargo container that could create a lot of damage, right, within a port. And that taking out ports is extremely common during any kind of a conflict scenario, because it's how the lifeline of a lot of countries works. And I think that is something that should have some consideration to it. So one thing I wanted to bring back to everybody's idea or thought process, right? And this is just because we went for a while now without talking about it in the media or anywhere else, and I think that it's worth discussing, is that I wanted to remind everybody of this little thing that happened, okay? There was a little thing that happened in Beirut back in 2020. There was just so much going on that year that, we kind of just saw it happen and said, well, that's crazy. And then everyone moved on, right? But the thing you probably don't know, or maybe you do if you've been paying attention, but a year after it, they've still been stonewalled in investigating what caused that explosion. And it happened in a port, of course. And you can even see there's a cargo ship right here on the screen, right? And 217 people lost their lives, 7,000 were injured when 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate exploded in Beirut's port on the 4th of August, 2020. Okay, displaced 300,000 people, caused widespread destruction and devastation, and damaged buildings up to 20 kilometers away. Now, that whole event was, non-nuclear, like that's all been vetted and everything else. But you come down here to this timeline, and it shows you that the investigation of this entire situation has been compromised, and that they just don't want to tell anybody what happened. And the families of the people who were lost, and the families of people who were displaced, in the sense of 300,000 people had to move or lost their homes or whatever it might be. No one knows what happened. Okay, no one's been held accountable, and basically the world has just kind of let this story die. Due to the fact that there's no real answers coming out, and it's gone for so long now that people aren't thinking about it anymore. Now, when you connect this whole situation to what was being discussed on channels like Marfoogle, as well as the idea that these cargo containers could have something more nefarious within them, which people wouldn't necessarily think would be something that could happen, I think that it's at least worth the discussion to say, look, this happened. Okay, this literally happened from an accident, supposedly, right? And it was, I believe, the largest non-nuclear explosion that's like ever occurred, right? It was huge, and I think we all remember when it happened. It was like insane. Watching the videos was just like the craziest thing you ever seen. But one of the largest non-nuclear explosions in history, right? And somehow I mean, there's still no smoking gun, right? There is no answers to like what exactly caused it besides neglect. Some people were neglectful about this ammonium nitrate that was left in there in a dangerous scenario, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, I wanted to bring this back up because the idea of it is interesting. Now, do I think that that's what we're going to experience in our ports or anything like that? Like, I think it's very unlikely. But what I will say is that those things happened and no answers were ever brought to the forefront. And now the things that are happening could easily happen in the same way that that happened if there's a reason why those answers are being suppressed, right? And that's something we should always keep in mind, is that when we see things like that happen with our own eyes on video, we know they occurred, and then enough time goes by, the way this media cycle works nowadays is that you just got to go long enough until everyone stops asking questions, and then they'll just go away. And so you could call it a test run, you could call it a dry run, you could call it whatever you wanted. But at the end of the day, what was discovered in that accident, which is what it was reported as, is that a lot of damage and destruction can occur from within a port. And a lot of people can be affected by it very quickly. And it's very interesting to me that, although most of those theories start to go down a pretty serious hole of the rabbit variety, that leads people into a little bit more of an absurdity. This situation that happened, and the idea behind what could be, they have some similarities, and there is something worth talking about there. Just my opinion. Okay, so I do want to go ahead and talk to, let's see, a couple of you in the chat here. And I just want to go ahead and see what everybody's working on. I see a lot of you all working on, training, things that you're trying to prepare for. Kelly T said ruin their economy too. Like, yeah, exactly. Immediately flip the switch. And Arkansas whoop ass says Lebanon, this is what happens when you stockpile grain, stuff like that. I mean, I don't know. These are all considerations, right? But at the end of the day, these are things that, I look at once in a while and I'm like, man, I I try not to jump down that rabbit hole too often, because obviously when it comes to preparedness, we need to worry about what's present, what is clear, right? And what we can easily foresee. But once in a while, we have to make some considerations that are more outlandish, because if we don't think outside of the box, we'll just stay in the box. And then that doesn't help us be more prepared, because in many ways, it actually keeps us blind to what could be a potential threat or a possibility. So I try to connect dots every so often. And obviously, those dots have been connected before. But one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up was because part of what I wanted to do in this chat tonight was talk about how 2022 is so uncertain. But in order to kind of prove that uncertainty, we had to talk about what has already happened and what we've seen happen and what the causes and effects of those happenings were, so that we can be better prepared for those new things to happen here in the future. And so when you talk about things like, Afghanistan and an economy collapsing right before everyone's eyes, and then that leading immediately to starvation, and then the fact that we're being told that all the major food groups are going to be more expensive and harder to acquire throughout the year, then those two things to me connect in the sense that we can see why food is so important right now more than anything, when economic collapse, according to all of you in the polls that I've taken here on this channel, is like the number one threat most of us feel we're facing here in the near future. So you have to combine starvation and economic collapse, because we're watching it occur right now in a country on this planet right in front of us. And so we have to once in a while do these exercises with our minds. And now stretching is good for exercise, right? Because it helps you not hurt yourself. So once in a while, I like to stretch and think about things like these cargo ships stuck in their ports, and then what happened in Beirut. And even if it's a straight up accident, that doesn't mean another similar accident can't just happen. But if another accident happens now, with every port fully backed up, with ships just waiting in port, with tons and tons of goods and cargo just waiting to be offloaded, and then this exact event occurs again, it's much worse suddenly than even what happened there. And what happened there was terrible. So this is why I think about these things. And this is why I want all of you to kind of keep it in mind. Let's not get too crazy. Let's not jump down the rabbit hole too far. but we also do need to at least keep some considerations in our minds, okay? And have our minds open to the idea that those possibilities exist, whether or not we want to admit they do. This is just something I wanted to bring up because it's another story that isn't being talked about any longer, but it's still very relevant to what's happening in the world. And I am concerned that something similar could happen at some point in time. Whether or not it's on purpose doesn't make a difference. But if it happens right now, in the state of things the way they are, you have the destruction of many ships, much cargo, many lives, and the fact that this already effed up supply chain just got way more screwed up, okay? So there it is, right? And that's why we should definitely keep these things in mind. Okay, so let's see. Trying to see if I can put anything else into play here from the chat. I do appreciate all of you being here and all of you having these conversations with me on a weekly basis. It's huge. It helps keep me motivated. It helps keep my mind moving forward, and it helps keep me aware of what's happening in the world. So I do appreciate that. Let's see. I'm seeing a lot of interesting conversations here, but nothing that's like directly to me. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. But I think that we can go ahead and start wrapping this up. I do want all of you to do your best to be here Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you can, that'd be great. Like I said, Bear Independent will be here. Him and I are going to have a chat. We're going to talk about preparedness, probably some of the things that piss us off, because one thing I like about his presentation is that he doesn't care if he pisses someone off, very similar to the Angry Prepper, and has very strong opinions about certain ideas when it comes to survival. And one of the things that we both agree on is related to the idea of like everyone going out and hunting and fishing, things like 22 long rifle being the golden cartridge, all those types of things that we're going to have a good conversation about. But also, like I said, we're going to try to support what he's doing out there in Kentucky and what we can do for our fellow, men and women that are affected by these disasters that, didn't do anything to deserve it. So I really hope I can see you guys there. And look, you don't have to donate. It's not about that. If you can't donate, don't feel like you have to. It's just about being there, supporting the idea. And then if you do any super chats during that chat, like I said, right to Grindstone Ministries. Mindstone's just a whole different thing. Don't worry about that. You don't need to look at that or read into that or know anything about it. Okay, so I just want everyone to be on the same page. If you guys have any other questions for me at all, put them in the chat at me. Let's see. Rip Curl Readiness says, what's the next addition to the arsenal in the future? And the next addition, I'll be honest with you, I'm waiting for the MCX Raptor to come out. I'm hoping to take a look at that. And I want to see what's going to happen with this NGSW system, 6.8 SIG, 0.277 Fury, whatever you want to call it. If there's an adaptation by the military for a new primary weapon system, then I'll be looking at that pretty furiously. Okay, so, and that was just a bad pun on the ammo type, but it's fine. Either way, that's where I'm at. Hope you guys have an excellent new year. 2022 is not going to whoop us because we are going to whoop it, but at the same time, who knows what it's going to throw at us. So we got to be ready for it. And I really appreciate that all of you are here prepping, getting ready for what's happening. And even if things get terrible, make sure you come back here and let us know if there's anything anyone can do. Because you know what? There might be someone in your area, and there might be people that we can help rely on or help out. You never know. But at the end of the day, we got to prepare so that way we don't become marauders. That's just what we're trying to do here. And if any of you become marauders, I'll be very disappointed. And I don't want to be that way. So let's see. I saw the H car, Chief Prepper. Maybe too heavy metal for me. I don't know. 30-06, man. That's throwing a lot of lead. And then how's the snow? It's so frozen. I don't even know if you can call it snow anymore. It's just like it's like hanging out on a snow cone. And then Unfazed, thank you as well. Happy New Year to you as well. And Jeremy Taylor, yes, it does have a folding stock, and you can get in a pistol configuration. So it hasn't come out yet, but it was revealed on TFB TV. So if you just search it on YouTube, you'll find it. And they are saying it's coming to the civilian market. But I'm still going to wait to see if it gets adaptation within the military before I go try to start, making moves. That's just my opinion. And then Rock Prep 11 says, what's your thought on Russia versus NATO. A lot of saber rattling. I think we're trying to get sanctions removed. I think we're trying to get some promises for the future in the sense of limiting NATO membership, so that way they can gain more power and strength and eventually make moves down the road with a weakened U.S. economy, weakened U.S. military, and a bunch of countries that don't benefit from having the ally status of NATO. So just my thought process. And then, yeah, make sure Northern Girl Hobbies, thanks for putting that out there. Make sure you guys check out the Discord. If you want to have conversations after this, jump on in, meet some people, go to your state channel, see if anybody's there in your area, even if you're all across the state. Look, I'm in North Dakota, right? So it takes me hours to get to other cities, but that's not a big deal here because anyone that lives here knows you pretty much drive an hour or two to go anywhere. But, you know, maybe if you're in a major city or in a populated state, it would seem crazy to drive an hour, right? So it just depends on where you are. So just meet up with people in your state if you can, or at least have that network and just try to build what you can. And then hopefully we'll just do this thing soon. Look, I'm still doing the 100,000 subscriber giveaway live stream as soon as I can. I just got to get there first. So there's been a little bit of a happening here, but I think that's just, you know, part of the course. But what I will say is that once I get there, I got some awesome stuff I'm going to give away to everybody, and just a big thank you. And there's no, you know, prerequisites. You don't have to be subscribed or anything like that for this giveaway, because I'm not allowed to have any prerequisites because it's what the platform says. So I'm okay with that. It's all about just making sure we get more people prepared. The stuff I'll be giving out is specifically related to preparedness. So hopefully that'll help everybody. But let's see. And cute one, if you're talking about the slap guy, I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about, but I might slap some bass on the 100,000 subscriber celebration video, because, you know, who doesn't like slapping the bass once in a while? So, and you know, I'm not bad at it. I might have done it a few times, but what I will say is we'll have some awesome guests as well, which I have already talked to many other awesome creators in the prepper sphere that are willing to jump in here and say hello and, you know, just kind of hang out for a minute while we celebrate the fact that like a huge community like this one can actually get this kind of a community network put together. Because honestly, like having 100,000 people subscribe to a preparedness channel is a big deal. That's a lot of people who are willing to at least like take a listen. And to me, that's like all it comes down to is like the more people we can get to listen, the better off we're all going to be. So, great. Well, it looks like all of you are on your way out to Smiling Wolf. I am no Victor Wooten. I won't lie to myself about that. Okay, but I got some skills. Don't worry. And then I hope that all of you are really feeling good about this year, because, you know, as bad as things can look, we're gonna have a good time. Because, you know, if the world goes down and starts to burn and we all see it coming, I'm literally still going to do my best to have this Marauder Monday, like maybe the last one ever, and we're going to all just laugh about it and say, well, you know, here we are. Ask me whatever you want. It doesn't matter anymore, you know. All right, well, that's going to be it. I am going to here's what we'll do. During the 100K live stream, if we ever get there, I'll actually play the full intro outro song for my video, so you guys can check it out. Because you know, I'm one of the people who wrote it, so I think that you might like it. But I do want to say that's going to be it. You guys are amazing. But I'll go ahead and log out, and I hopefully see you Wednesday night. Don't forget, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, and that is going to be it for Magic Prepper.